Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, you walk into your kitchen to make coffee. You feel safe in your own home. Then you look at the counter. Sitting right there is a framed photograph. It's a picture of you and your spouse sleeping in your bed. You look closer. You realize the photo was taken from inside your bedroom, from the foot of your bed, and it was taken last night. Someone was in your room, watching you breathe while you were defenseless. This is not a horror movie. This is exactly what happened to Mark and Sarah on October 14th, 2021 in Cascade Hills, Washington. They thought they were just spicing up a boring marriage. They had no idea they had just invited a predator into their home. Welcome back to Deadly Obsessions. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button. You do not want to miss the stories that will make you double check your locks at night. Today's story is a terrifying reminder that when you go looking for a fantasy, you might just find a nightmare. Mark and Sarah were your typical couple. Married 7 years, they loved each other, but they were bored. They were roommates who shared a mortgage. It started on a Tuesday night. They were watching a documentary about the lifestyle, swinging, partner swapping. They joked about it at first, but then Mark looked at Sarah and said maybe it would be fun. The joke died. They decided to try it. A reset button for their marriage. They set strict rules to stay safe. No feelings, no real names, one night only. They thought rules would protect them. They didn't realize that a predator doesn't care about your rules. They made a profile on a private app. They swiped until they found them. David and Jessica. On paper, they were perfect. David was a successful architect. Jessica was a stunning Pilates instructor. They arranged to meet at a neutral cocktail bar downtown. When David walked in, the energy in the room shifted. He was handsome, intense. He took control of the conversation immediately. He was charming. He made Mark and Sarah feel special. This is called love bombing. It's how a psychopath lowers your defenses. But Sarah noticed something about Jessica. Jessica was beautiful, but she looked terrified. She barely spoke. She flinched when David touched her neck. It was a massive red flag, but the alcohol was flowing. The thrill was taking over. Mark ignored his gut instinct. That was his first mistake. After an hour, David leaned in. "Let's go to our place," he said. "It's very private." They followed David's car into the hills. His house was an isolated glass fortress hanging off a cliff. As soon as the front door clicked shut, the vibe changed. David locked the deadbolt and punched a code into a keypad. "For privacy," he smiled. They paired off. Mark went with Jessica to the guest room. Sarah went with David to the master suite. In the guest room, Jessica walked to the window and stared at the dark forest. Mark sat on the bed, feeling awkward. "We don't have to do this," he said. Jessica spun around. Her eyes were wide with terror. She rushed over and whispered, "He's watching." "What?" Mark asked. "The house is wired," she sobbed. "Cameras, microphones. He watches everything. He makes me do this." Mark felt cold sweat on his back. This wasn't a fantasy. It was a trap. "We're leaving," Mark said. Jessica grabbed his arm hard. "He thinks Sarah's the one," she hissed. "The one to replace me." Mark didn't wait. He ran into the hallway and pounded on the master bedroom door. "Sarah, open the door!" Silence. Then the lock clicked. David stood there, shirtless, smirking. Sarah was behind him, looking dizzy and confused. "What's the rush?" David asked calmly. Mark grabbed Sarah. "We're going now." David blocked the doorway. He looked at Sarah like she was a possession he had just bought. "You know where you belong, Sarah." Mark pulled out his phone. "I'm calling 911. David calculated the odds. Then he stepped aside. "Go ahead, run away. You can't run from destiny." They didn't call the police that night. They were ashamed. They blocked the numbers and deleted the app. They thought if they ghosted him, it would end. But you can't ghost a monster. 3 days later, the gifts started. Expensive jewelry delivered to Sarah's office. Then the texts. David had found their personal numbers. "Mark is weak. I can protect you. I'm coming for you." Mark called the police. Officers looked at the texts and shrugged. "It is creepy," they said, "but he hasn't threatened violence. It is a civil matter." Then came the photo. Mark found it on the kitchen counter, the picture of them sleeping. David had broken in, stood over their bed, and watched them dream. He was toying with them. A massive storm hit the next night. Power lines went down. Mark and Sarah were trapped in the dark. Mark sat in the living room with a shotgun he had bought that morning. He had never fired a gun in his life. Around midnight, he heard it, glass breaking in the basement. Mark stood up, shaking. He shined his flashlight down the stairs. "I have a gun!" he screamed. A low laugh echoed from the darkness. "I know you do, Mark, but are you man enough to use it?" David emerged from the shadows. He was wearing black tactical gear, holding a hunting knife and a coil of rope. He looked like a soldier on a mission. "Sarah's waiting for me," David said, taking a step up. Mark pulled the trigger. Click. He had forgotten to chamber it round. David lunged. He tackled Mark. The gun flew across the room. David was on top, pinning Mark to the floor. He raised the knife. "Don't worry," David whispered. "I'll take good care of her." Mark closed his eyes, waiting to die. Whack! A sickening crack of metal on bone. David collapsed. Sarah stood over them, holding a heavy cast iron skillet. She was soaking wet, shaking. She had climbed out the bedroom window and entered through the kitchen to get behind him. She didn't run. She fought. Police found a kill kit in David's car. Lye, plastic sheeting, a shovel. He wasn't going to steal Sarah. He was going to kill Mark and kidnap her to a soundproof cabin in the woods. Jessica testified against him. She revealed there were other couples, other victims. David is now serving 30 years in prison. Mark and Sarah sold the house. They couldn't look at that kitchen floor again. They live in a gated community now. They check their locks 3 times a night. They wanted a story to tell. Well, they got one. But it's not the kind of story you tell at parties. It's the kind of story you whisper in the dark. So the next time you feel bored, maybe just go to a movie, because you never know who's waiting for you on the other side of that door. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, do you check your back seat before you get in the car? Because after this story, maybe you should. This is Deadly Obsessions. Stay safe and stay suspicious.